Greetings and welcome back to the QuaranTimes show. I'm your host, Sean Phillips, and it just makes me so happy to see you again. I have to tell you, I truly enjoyed the time we spent together last week. As usual though, I got in my head right afterward. You know how it goes. First I started to think it might have been totally one-sided, and that you would end up ghosting me, which would lead me spiraling downwards into a depression, and then I would end up stress eating and drinking every single day. But fortunately, I snapped out of it the moment I realized I was stress eating and drinking every day already. Fucking quarantine life. I want to get real with you for a moment. I know that this sheltering at home thing is the right thing for me, my family, the community, but it really sucks. The seclusion and the lack of normalcy is totally chipping away at my spirit, but having this silly show to throw my energy into is giving me something positive to focus on and a much needed distraction. After my first episode, I got so much positive feedback, constructive criticism, and love in response to it. I was blown away. Not only that, but I also got some much needed tips and a few things off my wish list to help me improve the show. Like our new friend here. Needless to say, all of that got me very excited to keep this going and just see how far I can take it. So seriously, thank you so much for coming back, and that goes doubly if you were one of the viewers for whom YouTube decided that the best possible thing to have autoplay after my video would be another video that was titled, Jesus, I am desperate for you. Because if you found Jesus, and then you came back to me, that makes me like the Beatles, right? Bigger than Jesus? I'm sorry. I really have to stop with the sacrilegious humor. Not just for myself, but for all of our sakes. Because I mocked the swarms of locusts on last week's show, and then this week, God unleashed murder hornets on us. Murder fucking hornets. There is very little I'm afraid of, but I have an irrational fear of anything with a stinger on its ass. So I think it is safe to assume that this is 100% causation and absolutely not correlation, and that murder hornets are God's way of smiting me for episode 1. And for those of you that missed that episode, let me sum it up for you. It was mainly 36 minutes of me referring to the president as that motherfucker and trying to convince my viewers not to fuck their cats, while the studio lights reflected off my glasses in the most annoying way possible. But this episode's going to be different. Okay, it's not going to be that different, because I'm still going to refer to the president as that motherfucker quite a bit. But I'm also going to talk about Dr. Fauci as a sex symbol, Superman's son's crotch, flat earthers, and so much more. Plus, with my wife's help, I think I fixed the damn lighting, so stay tuned. Without any further ado, let's get into the news. Will Reeves, son of Christopher Reeves, aka Superman, grew up to be a reporter, just like Clark Kent, the character his father played. Unfortunately, that was the only thing he had in common with Superman, as the poor guy didn't get any of his superpowers. I'm sure you remember how Superman could go from mild-mannered reporter to cape superhero in mere seconds, simply by changing outfits in a phone booth. Well, his son, on the other hand, couldn't even get his pants on in time for a Good Morning America segment he was filming at home.
But the companies do say they will scale up the program if it is successful, guys.
Very cool. We love it, Will.
But you know what? I applaud him. Real journalists like myself never wear pants. Why do you think we sit behind a desk? The Trump administration blocked a request for Anthony Fauci to testify before a House subcommittee that was investigating the coronavirus outbreak and response. they claimed that it was counterproductive to have the very individuals involved in those efforts appearing at congressional hearings. But here's the thing. Dr. Fauci has become one of, if not the, most trusted voices in the entire country regarding the coronavirus pandemic. And not welcoming him to participate in an investigation regarding the response to the coronavirus outbreak, that's like not welcoming Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Bill Cosby to a subcommittee investigating the best ways to molest women. Because if you want truly thorough investigations, you need the top experts in the field, right? But what's the motivation here? I mean, Trump obviously has issues with him. He made that perfectly clear when he shared a tweet that suggested that Fauci be fired. And it is well reported that the doctor has stood up against the Trump administration's spreading of misinformation. So that could be a motivating factor, obviously. But I think he goes deeper than that. I honestly think this is all because of the movement to name Dr. Fauci Time Magazine's Sexiest Man of the Year. I mean, you gotta admit, he's pretty damn hot for an 80-year-old dude. Just look at him, biting on his glasses frames, all sexy like, meow. And it is not hard to imagine ye old pussy grabber not liking the fact that so many women find intelligence sexy, because that just doesn't fare well for him. On Monday, that motherfucker took the stage at the Lincoln Memorial, where he gave a town hall for the radically unbiased Fox News network, during which he proclaimed, "I am greeted with a hostile press, the likes of which no president has ever seen." Then, while pointing up towards the statue of President Lincoln, he said the unbelievable. The closest would be that gentleman right up there. They always said nobody was treated worse than Lincoln, but I believe I am being treated worse. You see a pattern here? You see it? Whereas someone like Bernie campaigned on the "us, not me" slogan, that motherfucker has always and will always be about himself above all else. Instead of "us, not me," it is always "me, me, me." And not once during this whole pandemic has that motherfucker spoken publicly and not made it about him. But that statement claiming no president has been treated worse than him totally takes the cake, because every single president before him has been attacked by the media. Hell, that is pretty much in their job description. But let's get back to the Lincoln thing. Nobody got treated worse than Lincoln? Really? I hate to be the guy that spoils Steven Spielberg's 2012 movie Lincoln, but in case you haven't seen it, or you've never taken a history class ever, Lincoln was assassinated. But even before the assassination, Lincoln got plenty of shit from the media. He just handled it with humor and grace, instead of acting like a spoiled child who didn't get their way. One time a reporter called Lincoln two-faced, and Lincoln responded by saying, "If I had two faces, do you think I would have chose this one?" The worst part is, this wasn't the first time this week that Trump compared himself to Lincoln. And the previous incident, although less reported on, was way, way, way worse. Because just the day before, Donald Trump shared a tweet that said, this is unbelievable and it's hard for me to even repeat, "Trump has done more for the blacks than all other presidents combined." He shared this tweet and then added his own words saying, "So true, although Honest Abe wasn't bad." Wasn't bad? The vast majority of historians agree that Lincoln was the single greatest president in U.S. history. And to say that Trump did more for blacks than the man who issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves, is inarguably wrong. And this tweet did not just claim that. It claimed that he did more for blacks than all presidents combined. All of them. And that statement is more separated from reality than the flat earthers that I'm going to talk about later in this episode. Hell, that statement is more separated from reality than the flat earthers, Kanye West, and me on a 10 strip combined. Okay, so this is old news that I couldn't fit into episode 1, but I think it's still worthy of a mention. Now, if you watch any news program besides mine, which I don't recommend, but if you do, you might have already seen that Trump's name was to be printed on the stimulus checks. Now, supposedly, this was the initiative of Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. That motherfucker claimed that he didn't know much about it, and then he followed that up by saying, "I'm sure people will be very happy to get a big, fat, beautiful check and my name be on it." And I'll admit, I was damn happy when the stimulus money came through. It allowed my family to maintain the luxurious lifestyle we are so accustomed to. You know, the one where we have a roof over our head, food on our plates, and internet to keep us sane through these trying times with videos like this.
Doesn't show, but the pain's too rose. Some stranger to you and me.
Now, luckily for me, I got the direct deposit, and it didn't come with his name anywhere on it, because that would have just tainted and ruined the glorious TikTok tribute to Phil Collins. And we can't have that. We just can't have that. But like the other 80 million Americans who got a stimulus payment, regardless of whether it was a physical check or not, I also received a letter telling me that I would be receiving the stimulus money. But this letter came weeks after I had not only received the stimulus, but spent it on the aforementioned luxury items. So it certainly did not fulfill its intended role of letting me know that I would be getting the money. But it did serve as more pompous boasting by, that motherfucker. Not to mention the fact that it came addressed from the IRS. And the IRS is supposedly a completely nonpartisan agency. But by sending this letter, they just look like Trump's bitch. And now, I am totally not an expert in economics, by any means. But if 80 million Americans received this letter, and one first-class postage stamp costs 55 cents, and yes, I can confirm the federal government does pay for postage, then this vanity letter cost American taxpayers, let me do the math here, way too much fucking money! Now apparently, I'm not alone in my thinking, as Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is introducing a bill to stop shit like this. And that bill is called the No PR Act. It's a bill which would prohibit spending federal dollars on material sporting Trump or Vice President Mike Pence's names, or signatures, or likenesses, or what the fuck ever. And I hope we can all agree that taxpayer money shouldn't be used to promote any politician's name. I mean, what sort of country would allow that? And speaking of Kim Jong-un, after weeks of speculation about the dictator's rapidly deteriorating health, a North Korean defector turned South Korea lawmaker claimed on Friday that he is 99% sure that Kim Jong-un died after surgery. But by the very next day, Kim Jong-un responded with a bitch please moment by having the state news agency release this photo of him, which is said to have been taken Friday at a fertilizer plant opening ceremony. And how many times can this monster come back from the dead? I mean, didn't we all watch him die in the documentary film about him?
Like the 4th of July, baby, you're a firework. Come on, let your colors burst. Make them go as you leave them falling down.
Not one to let any big news story go without commenting on it, that motherfucker tweeted, "I, for one, am glad to see he is back and well." Now, I'm not saying we should celebrate anybody's death, but we certainly don't need to celebrate the well-being of one of history's cruelest dictators. This is a man who has had his own people executed for consumption of media not approved by the government, and a man who has threatened our nation with nuclear attack time and time again. His well-being is nothing to celebrate. Nothing. know what is something to celebrate, though? Lance Bass of New Kids on the Block fame turned 41 this week. Wait, I'm getting the... was it NSYNC? Are you sure it wasn't Backstreet Boys or Menudo? No? NSYNC? Okay, whatever. I can get down with celebrating an adorable boy band boy becoming a middle-aged man. That is easy for me to get behind. But I can't believe I'm saying this. But there are two other old white dudes whose actions this week are also worthy of celebrating. Unlike the lovely Lance Bass, these are two people I normally loathe. Sean Hannity and Mike fucking Pence. Now these are two humans I couldn't possibly agree with less on most things. But this week, both of them actually took action that I kind of respect, and I want to give them credit for that. Let's start with Sean Hannity. For those who aren't familiar with him, he is a top-rated journalist with Fox News. In reality, he is a slightly saner conspiracy theorist than Alex Jones, and a man who once used the beating of a transgender woman to argue against hate crime legislation. He is insane, hate-filled, and all-around fucking awful. But this week he actually did one thing worthy of respect. So Hannity is a huge proponent of gun rights, and every time he has discussed the subject of gun violence, his go-to answer has always been, more guns. Somebody got shot? Bring out more guns. More guns, more guns, more guns. But this week, he publicly came out against the armed protesters in Michigan. He said, this with the militia, look here, and these long guns? No. A show of force is dangerous. That puts our police at risk. And by the way, your message will never be heard, whoever you people are. Now, I'm sure you've seen these idiots that he is talking about on the news. You know who they are. They're the ones that are decked out in poorly fitting tactical mall ninja gear, and they're open carrying large intimidating rifles while they protest their right to do essential things like get haircuts, massages, and play golf. Do you remember that scene in the movie Seven when Brad Pitt's character said, maybe you're just sitting around, reading Guns and Ammo, masturbating in your own feces. Do you just stop to think, wow, it is amazing how fucking crazy I really am? That line right there is what I thought of when I saw a picture of these idiots. I haven't seen that movie in years, but I instantly thought of that. Masturbating in their own feces, jerking off to Guns and Ammo. Meanwhile, unarmed black Americans just living their lives are getting shot by police on a regular basis, and it is justified because they had a phone or some other non-weapon in their hand? Yet, these armed protesters who were blatantly violating local ordinances are not even cited tickets? Hell, they were not even asked to leave. But that shouldn't even be remotely shocking, as white men with guns protesting get special privileges on the regular. And that right there was shown so blatantly at a Kentucky gun rights protest in January. The security guard let these armed jackasses walk around the metal detector with their loaded rifles to enter the State House. And I guess maybe at that point, who cares if someone has a pocket knife when they are openly carrying an AK-47 and a dozen 30-round magazines, right? No? How can anyone, of any intelligence at all, see things like this and deny that white privilege is a thing? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm veering off track here and onto a tangent. And it is one that I am positive Hannity and I would disagree on. But the fact remains, this week he did call his own people out on their shit. And I commend him for that. Now, before you go and start feeling good and thinking that this is a viewpoint shared by the entire right, we have to come back to that motherfucker, Donald Trump. Because he put out a tweet referring to the protesters, including the armed ones, as very good people. And did I mention that some of these very good people were carrying Confederate flags, swastikas, and nooses? But while that motherfucker was praising these monsters, that vice motherfucker, aka Mike Pence, had a rare moment of humility. If you spent any time on social media over the last week, you inevitably saw the shitstorm surrounding his visit to the Mayo Clinic. And for those of you that were sheltering in place under a rock, Mike Pence went on a tour of the Mayo Clinic, which had a firm policy requiring anyone who entered to wear a face mask, and yet he refused to wear a mask. And he later implied that he didn't know it was a policy, to which the Mayo Clinic took to Twitter to confirm that they did inform him of the policy. Now, I would think that the whitest person in the entire fucking world would respect any policy involving Mayo. But that just wasn't the case here. Then he tried justifying it by saying, and I quote, "I wanted to look workers in the eye." Hey, Mike, my eyes are up here. Quit gazing down there. You don't need to be checking out my pretty mouth. My eyes, they're up here. But unlike that motherfucker, when that vice motherfucker got torn apart on social media and regular media alike, instead of continuing to defend his actions and accuse the media of a witch hunt, he gave an actual apology at the town hall that we were talking about earlier, during which he said, "I did think it was necessary, but I should have worn a mask at the Mayo Clinic." Now that is about as half-assed as an apology can get, but coming from a member of the Trump administration, any apology is huge, so I genuinely commend him for doing so. Now that motherfucker, on the other hand, toured a mask manufacturing facility yesterday, the day after Pence's apology, where he declined to wear a mask regardless of the fact they require everyone on their premise to do so. That motherfucker. That motherfucker. That motherfucker. And on that note, I feel like this is a good segue for us to talk more about masks. No. I don't want to talk about the 1985 Cher movie about the teenager with Leonidas, or the 1994 Jim Carrey movie. You know, the one that was differentiated from the Cher movie only by adding a "the" before mask. And we aren't going to talk about Halloween mask or the kind used for facials. Facials. I'm laughing at my own joke, I'm sorry. No, we are going to talk exclusively about the face mask that you wear to help reduce the spread of contagious diseases, and more specifically, COVID-19. And if you watched my last episode, you may have noticed that my beard is way shorter. And you're probably thinking that has something to do with wearing a mask. And to that extent, you're right. But not for the reason you might imagine. So by now, everyone has probably seen the meme going around saying that the CDC recommends shaving your beard to protect you from the coronavirus. Well, just like so many quality memes, that's only half true. Now, the CDC did make that infographic, but they didn't make it for COVID-19. They made it for a 2017 blog post, which was explaining how different sorts of facial hair can affect the way a tight-fitting respirator fits. And the key there being that it's only an issue if you're wearing a properly fitted medical respirator. For those of us that are wearing loose-fitting respirators, or cloth surgical mask, or homemade mask, or pretty much anything else, it's irrelevant because those masks aren't sealing against our face in the first place. So if it doesn't make it seal better, well, why would I shave off my glorious beard? And I gotta be honest with you, it's because I am a shallow bitch of a man, and when I put the mask on, it squeezed my face, and it made my face look fatter than it already is, and little tufts curled out of the bottom, and hairs came out of the top, and it kind of bunched up into this fucking ugly thing, and I'm way too vain for that. But you know what I'm not too vain for? I am not too vain to put my shallow bitch self above the good of the community. And so I'm gonna wear a mask anytime I go out in public. But if I'm going to wear a mask, I want to do it in a way that doesn't make me look fucking awful, because when I take the mask off, my beard's all smushed. When I wear the mask, it's all hanging out. No. I'm going to trim it up so it works better with the mask, and leave a sleazy mustache, because why wouldn't you leave a sleazy mustache? Because it's fun. Anyhow, that's the story. That's why I trimmed my beard. So what I'm saying here is that if you're wearing a regular mask and you're not wearing an N95 respirator that fits just as perfectly as Joe Exotic's jeans, then shaving to wear it is almost as pointless as Melania Trump hoping to stay dry before she bought her own umbrella. That motherfucker does that to his wife. Really. Let's just stand there, get fucking wet. Now, I already said I'm going to wear a mask anytime I'm out in public. I am firm in that belief. And let's say I'm wrong. Let's say I'm wrong. I'm wrong, right? So I wear a mask. I get a little hot. I breathe a little slower. Whatever. But if I'm right, I protect people. And if I'm wrong, I hurt. If I'm wrong, no harm, no foul, right? It's just stupid. I can't see it. But I do understand that some people are making some pretty valuable arguments for why you shouldn't wear a mask. Like the fact that it can make breathing difficult for people that are already asthmatic. And that makes sense. And it is a valid argument. But regardless of that, the CDC still recommends that everyone wear a mask. And they specifically included those that are asthmatic. But then there are people, and I have a hard time even calling them people because they're hardly human at this point, that have the audacity to compare the government-mandated face coverings to rape. Making somebody wearing a mask compared to rape. And comparing one of, if not the, most traumatic experience in a survivor's life to the minor inconvenience of having to wear a mask in a public place is absolutely sickening. And about the only fair comparison to mandating masks be worn in public are the laws that require female breasts to be covered. Except for that's not the same either, because one of those mandates is proven to save lives. And what does the other one do? Keeps shallow men from being distracted by a boob? But why wear a mask? There's been so much debate and flip-flopping of opinions on this. You know, originally the CDC came out and they said that most people should not be wearing a mask. But you have to realize that was primarily motivated by them not wanting the public to be competing for the PPE that our frontliners so desperately need. Then they redacted that statement and they came out and they said that all people should wear face coverings. Everybody. And that came with the caveat that you should still be using non-medical supplies, because to this day, our frontline workers still have a shortage. And a lot of people continue arguing that face coverings are ineffective. And there is some solid truth to that, in the fact that wearing something like a bandana offers very, very, very little protection to the person wearing it. But you have to remember, this is not about you. Stop being so fucking selfish. This is about other people, because COVID-19 is commonly transmitted by COVID-19 is commonly transmitted by people that don't show symptoms, because I cannot seem to say that other fucking word for the life of me. And when these people have no symptoms and they think that they don't have the disease, they're still spreading it to people. But by putting a barrier on the wearer, it protects the people around them. And I've seen this compared to urination. It's a pretty valid comparison. They say that if you wear a pair of pants and somebody pisses on you, you're still getting covered in piss, but a little bit less so than if you were completely naked, right? And if the person wearing the pants pisses and they piss on you, well, a lot less is going to go through their pants to get to you. So the best case scenario is that the person pissing is wearing pants and the person in the vicinity of the piss is wearing pants, unless you're into getting pissed on and it's consensual, and I totally approve of that. Totally. It's cool. Go for it. But nobody's consenting to getting this life-threatening virus spread on them. So do society a favor and protect them from yourself. Think of it like this. If you had sex with every single person that you shared any space with, your odds of getting an STI and not knowing it would be astronomically high. But with COVID-19, you don't have to have sex with anyone or even touch anyone to get it. Simply sharing airspace with people puts you at risk, and it also puts them at risk from you. So just like you should wear protection for sex, you should use protection when you are going out. You should use protection to protect you from others and to protect them from yourself. But the primary motivation for a basic face covering is protecting everybody from you, more so than protecting yourself. And if everybody did that, we would all be protected to some extent. It's not idiot-proof, and it's not 100% safe, and it's not even 95% safe, but we are still greatly reducing the odds of transmission and still continuing to work to flatten the curve just by doing that. Now, I don't want to focus just on the bad without talking about the good too, because there's always a balance to these things. And there have been so many acts of kindness that come from this mask issue. Countless individuals have started making masks. Companies have shifted their production to make masks and face shields, and millions of Americans are selflessly wearing masks to protect others from them. And that is absolutely beautiful. And we need to take a few minutes to appreciate what makes America great. The American sense of ingenuity. And what could be more American than a Chinese knockoff Canon air filter taped to a water jug being used as a makeshift gas mask? Speaking of things that are American, there is so much toxic masculinity in America that many men won't even buy feminine hygiene products for the women in their lives. But this gentleman right here, he proves that he does not have that issue, as he proudly wears a maxi pad over his face. Yes, go! And toxic masculinity, it also makes it so many men are unable to cry. But this gentleman right here, he figured out a way to solve that issue and meet local regulations by covering his face with an onion. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. God bless America. And then we have this guy. This guy had two different problems, but he managed to find one solution that fixed both of them. This guy managed to not only protect himself from other people's body fluids, but also prevented him from licking his own crotch in public, something that he's had issues with in the past and something that he does not want going on his permanent record. Who wants that? It's not a good charge. You do not want to be listed as a sex offender just because you can't help but lick your genitals in public. It's not something you want. And it's certainly not something he wanted. And finally, we have this woman. And she genuinely believes that she has figured out the best possible way to breathe freely while wearing a face covering.
So this girl's coming in with her mask on. Y'all need to see this.
Hey, Joe, look at this ghetto.
Hello. How you doing?
Pretty good. I need 10 on pump one, please.
Where'd you get that mask from?
Well, since we have to wear them and it makes it harder to breathe, this makes it a lot easier to breathe.
Cutting it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll do that too. Thanks for the advice.
Have a good day.
Appreciate you.
But the reality is, what she actually figured out was the best possible way to go viral on the internet and have the whole world think she is a fucking idiot. A fucking idiot. And speaking of fucking idiots, we always come back to this. You probably heard that motherfucker mention the Spanish flu in comparison to the current pandemic. But he never goes into much detail, and he certainly never told the tale of the anti-mask leak. You see, a century ago, San Francisco was hit harder than any other U.S. city by the flu. And obviously, they've learned from their mistakes because they are doing a damn solid job right now. Unfortunately, the rest of us aren't really doing a great job of learning from history. At the time, they mandated that masks be worn in public to help slow the spread. Even though they were using porous gauze masks, the results were extremely positive. And by the end of October, a full-page headline from the Chronicle proclaimed, "Influenza masks play a big part in curbing epidemic." And by mid-November, cases had dropped, and with them, so did the legal mandate to wear masks. Now, consequently, there were cases increasing and people would start wearing masks again, and cases would decrease and then people would stop wearing masks. And there was an ebb and flow of this for a good while until January, where a sudden spike caused the city to legally require masks be worn once more. And just like today, that pissed off a subset of the population. People who felt their freedom were being violated, and several of them got together to form the Anti-Mask League. They held a rally where the protesters, and this is going to sound familiar, the protesters questioned whether the pandemic was really as bad as people said, or if it went more like the normal cold and flu season. Like, what? This is the exact same shit. And back then, people opposed to masks took to violence to get their point across. At the time, someone even sent a bomb to the doctor that pushed for the mandate. And today, we're not going to do that, right? We're not going to stoop to violence. Wrong. Today we have protesters flaunting their firearms, and worse, we have people being actually shot over simply doing their job and enforcing local regulations. Let's take a moment and pay respect to Calvin Munnerlyn. He was murdered in cold blood for simply asking a customer at the Family Dollar he worked to wear a mask. You know, there's a long story that goes with that, but it's irrelevant because he was murdered for simply doing his job. He wasn't enforcing his policy, the store's policy. He was enforcing the law. But even if it was his business and he was asking them to wear a mask, and they didn't want to wear a mask, maybe they should just fucking leave. You don't have to kill people. Just fucking leave. And all over America, people are using violence and intimidation to fight the mask ordinances. In many cases, it is working. Unbelievable. Like in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where a mandate requiring face mask brought up so much of a ruckus and people got so rowdy that somebody threatened gun violence. You know what happened? They backed down. They changed the mandate to a suggestion. Violent threats won out. And so today, the people that are trying to protect the community are getting threats of violence from people that don't want to wear masks, that want to get their hair cut with no regard for anybody else. And where is this violent outrage and uprising where the cops are shooting people? Or the government is bailing out billionaires, or American citizens are being taken out by drone strikes from their own fucking government. And now I am not a proponent of violence for these things, but if you're gonna raise arms and cause a violent uprising, they're worthy causes. Not wearing a mask is definitely not one of them. Not in a little bit. So, when we're looking at this stuff, we have to ask, what's the difference between my dick and stimulus checks? Huh? Everyone is willing to blow stimulus checks. Hey, ba-dum-dum. Sorry, I had to change the tone because shit was getting way too dark. It's an ugly time we live in, and you can dip into this negativity, but you have to pull yourself out, and humor is a good way of doing that, and I hope that I can help with that a little bit, just a little teeny bit. That's the whole purpose of the show. And so for the 4 of you watching that don't know me personally, when I am not unemployed and sheltering at home and spending most of my time making a YouTube show, I'm a body piercer by trade with over 20 years of experience. And a few times each year, I get paid to teach classes on universal precautions and other techniques to help prevent disease transmission. So I have a pretty solid knowledge on what works and what doesn't. And I didn't want to take the majority of this episode going into all the details of the efficacy of various mask design and proper mask usage, but if that is something y'all would appreciate, drop a comment and let me know, and I will make a mini-sode purely focusing on those things. And at the end of the last episode, I promised you that I would get to the bottom of this whole coronavirus thing and bring you the real news by going to the one source of facts that other so-called journalists don't dare to go. the flat earthers. So I lied my ass off to be able to infiltrate countless Facebook groups so I could share the truth with my viewers. Now, I went into this expecting them to explain the conspiracy behind the coronavirus. And I'll be honest, I'm still looking for that answer. Was it 5G or Bill Gates or the lizard people? I don't know, but god damn it, I'm gonna find out. But while I didn't get the answer to that, I did find out this. This is great. The rapid spread of coronavirus proves that the earth is flat. If the earth is round, how did the coronavirus spread from country to country? The particles would just move into space, which highly contradicts the round earth model. Coronavirus can only be spread efficiently through a flat earth model. What would allow the spread of water better? Something flat, like a plate, or something round, like a basketball? How the fuck you can argue that, right? Fuck science. So don't worry, I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to get more answers from you, from the flat earth groups. I also delved into the Pizzagate groups. And I'm also going to delve into any other online place where people gather to share the truth so I can bring that knowledge right back here to the QuaranTimes show. And thanks for watching this far. I appreciate it. My average viewer is like 6 minutes. So if you made it this far, woo, you fucking win. And if you like what I'm doing, please do the YouTube thing and give this video a like, give my channel a subscribe. And if you don't like what I'm doing, find your closest Catholic church and go into the confessional where you can tell a qualified priest just how guilty you feel for watching an abomination of a show like this. And if you are so inclined, and please feel free to drop some coin in my virtual tip jar or grab an item off my Amazon wishlist for this show. Links for both of those can be found below. And I gotta say, the hardest part of doing this show is finding content. And it's not for a lack of content, it's that there is so much news that is worthy of sharing and ridiculing in so little time. But if you have any ideas for things you would like to see me rant about, or you want to offer constructive criticism, or you want to sell me a timeshare, feel free to do so in the comments, which are also below. And I hope you'll come back next week. Please don't ghost me, please. I'm sensitive. But until then, keep on keeping on, and please pray for my salvation from these goddamn murder hornets. Murder fucking hornets.